0500 hours, west coast of Galway, Ireland. The Atlantic Ocean is black and restless. Thick, freezing fog rolls off the water, clinging to the jagged limestone cliffs. High atop the ridge, U.S. Communications Node Alpha sits in silence. The facility is a cluster of white radar domes and concrete bunkers surrounded by razor wire. A low electrical hum vibrates from the cooling units. A lone Marine sentry walks the perimeter, his boots crunching softly on the wet gravel. He stops to adjust his collar against the damp chill. The rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks below masks the sound of heavy diesel engines idling 2 miles inland. Deep within the peat bogs, the mist hides a lethal shape. Wet camouflage netting slides off the angular steel of a British mobile launcher. Hydraulic stabilizers hiss as they drive into the soft earth, locking the heavy vehicle in place. The boxy launch canisters elevate, rotating smoothly toward the coast. Inside the fire control van, a British targeting officer watches a thermal feed. The silhouette of the U.S. radar dome glows white on his screen. He speaks a single word into his headset. He flips the safety cover and presses the launch key. The bog erupts. Compressed air screams as the first Patriot missile ejects from its tube. The solid fuel motor ignites with a blinding flash that turns the fog into a wall of brilliant white light. The ground shudders. The missile accelerates instantly, tearing a vacuum through the mist as it roars toward the cliffs. The Marine sentry turns toward the shrieking noise. He raises his rifle, but the sky is already falling. The missile slams into the base of the primary antenna array. The warhead detonates. The explosion rips the concrete foundation apart. The blast wave hits the sentry, hurling him backward into the perimeter fence. Steel girders groan, twist, and snap like dry twigs. The massive white radar dome collapses inward, crushing the operations center beneath it. A fireball blooms, expanding rapidly and engulfing the entire north quadrant of the facility. Seconds later, a second missile streaks in. It strikes the generator complex. The fuel storage tank ruptures. Thousands of gallons of diesel ignite, sending a river of liquid fire rolling across the pavement. The shockwave blows the blast doors off the barracks. Glass windows shatters inward, spraying sleeping technicians with razor-sharp shards. Inside the command bunker, the ceiling lights shatter. Darkness swallows the room, broken only by the flickering red strobe of the emergency alarm. A U.S. lieutenant pushes a fallen filing cabinet off his legs. He stumbles to the comms desk, coughing in the thick, acrid smoke. He grabs the hardened landline handset. Silence. He smashes his fist against the console and grabs the tactical radio. Static. He yells for the sergeant to secure the encryption keys. But the corridor to the server room is a solid wall of orange flame. Outside, the primary tower groans. The metal shears with a sound like a dying animal. The entire structure topples slowly over the cliff edge, crashing into the Atlantic surf 300 feet below. Node Alpha is dark. 0510 hours. U.S. Communications Node. Bravo, 10 miles inland. A cold drizzle begins to fall, turning the dirt tracks of the secondary base into slick mud. The air smells of ozone and impending rain. Inside the perimeter, the atmosphere is brittle. The distant thunder from the strike on Node Alpha still rolls through the valley. Amber warning lights spin silently atop the guard towers. Marines sprint from their barracks, boots pounding heavily on the wet pavement. They do not shout. They move with practiced, frantic speed, slamming magazines into assault rifles and sliding into pre-dug fighting positions. A captain stands on the roof of the logistics block. He raises his binoculars toward the north. A massive column of black smoke rises above the tree line, blotting out the sunrise. He lowers the glass. His knuckles are white. The radar warning receiver on the command truck screams. A high-pitched, continuous tone cuts through the morning air. "Inbound! Take cover!" a sergeant roars, his voice cracking. The cloud layer directly above them tears open. A supersonic blur streaks downward. The sound lags behind the visual. A terrifying silence before the physics catches up. The Patriot interceptor, modified for ground impact, slams into the center of the main operations bunker. The roof does not hold. 3 feet of reinforced concrete disintegrates under the kinetic impact. The warhead detonates inside the structure. The ground heaves violently, knocking the sprinting Marines off their feet. A shockwave of dust, pulverized cement, and furniture blasts out of the bunker's ventilation shafts. The heavy steel blast doors blow outward, tumbling end over end across the courtyard like discarded toys. They crush a parked jeep, flattening the chassis instantly. Fire erupts from the crater. It is not a clean burn. It is a choking, dirty cloud of burning insulation and electronics. The captain on the logistics roof is hurled backward by the overpressure. He hits the gravel roof hard, sliding to a stop against a vent pipe. He shakes his head, spitting blood. He does not check his injuries. He rolls over and scrambles to the edge of the roof. Below, the courtyard is a moonscape of gray dust and debris. A deep crater smokes where the command center stood seconds ago. Water lines have ruptured, spraying high-pressure jets into the burning rubble. "Medic! Get a medic up here!" A voice screams from the smoke. Two Marines drag a limp body away from the burning ruin. The wounded man's uniform is shredded. Blood trails through the gray dust. A support beam groans and shifts, collapsing further into the hole. The radio in the captain's tactical vest crackles. It is the surviving security detail from the perimeter. "Contact! We have movement in the south woods. Contact front!" The captain grabs his radio. He looks at the burning bunker, then at the southern tree line. The missile strike was just the opening salvo. "All units shift fire south," he yells into the mic. "Defend the perimeter." Small arms fire erupts from the tree line. Bullets spark against the wet pavement and ping off the metal siding of the surviving buildings. The ambush has begun. 0520 hours, airspace over the Galway coast. The sky is gray and turbulent. Two U.S. fighter jets cut through the cloud deck at supersonic speed. The sonic boom rattles the windows of coastal cottages miles below. Inside the cockpits, the pilots breathe heavily into their oxygen masks. Their heads swivel constantly. Below them, the burning ruins of Node Alpha glow like a jagged wound on the dark cliffs. The smoke column punches through the overcast layer, marking the target zone. The lead pilot banks hard to the left, dropping altitude to scan the peat bogs. His wingman stays high, covering the 6 o'clock position. The terrain below is a blur of brown earth and green scrub. Deep in the bog, the British mobile battery shifts its focus. The fire control radar rotates upward. It stops. The beam paints the lead jet. Inside the cockpit, the radar warning receiver screams. The digital display flashes red. The continuous tone fills the pilot's helmet. "My missile launch! Brake right!" the lead pilot yells. He yanks the stick. The jet rolls violent, inverting instantly. Gravity crushes the pilot into his seat. He punches the countermeasure button. Flares burst from the rear of the aircraft. They bloom like brilliant white fireworks against the gray clouds, burning at thousands of degrees to confuse the heat-seeking sensors. Two missiles streak up from the mist. They leave thick white smoke trails that stitch the sky. The first missile takes the bait. It swerves toward a falling flare and detonates harmlessly in midair. The shockwave shakes the jet, rattling the instrument panel. The second missile does not bite. It ignores the flares. It corrects its course, pulling a tight lead on the fighter jet. The pilot pushes the throttle to the stops. Afterburners ignite. Blue flame roars from the engines. He dives toward the ocean surface to break the radar lock. The missile closes the distance. It detonates 20 meters off the right wing. Shrapnel sprays the aircraft. The explosion shreds the starboard stabilizer. The jet shudders violently. Warning lights flood the cockpit. Hydraulic fluid sprays across the canopy glass. The aircraft lurches, fighting the pilot's control inputs. "I'm hit, losing hydraulic pressure," the pilot shouts. He fights the stick with both hands. The jet levels out just 50 feet above the white caps of the Atlantic. Black smoke pours from the right engine. "Abort run, disengage," the wingman orders. The two jets turn west, fleeing out to sea, away from the lethal reach of the hidden battery. The coast is undefended. 0545 hours. Perimeter of U.S. node. Charlie Deep Forest. The pine forest is dense and dark. Mist clings to the needles, muffling all sound. Node Charlie, a hardened bunker complex dug into the hillside, sits behind a double layer of chain-link fencing. Floodlights cut through the fog, illuminating the wet asphalt of the entry road. Two U.S. Marine sentries stand at the main gate. They hold their rifles at the low ready. Their breath puffs in white clouds. They scan the tree line, but the woods are a wall of black and gray. 50 yards away, the ground moves. A patch of moss and fern lifts slightly. A British sniper in a ghillie suit adjusts his position. The barrel of his suppressed rifle slides through the undergrowth. He exhales slowly. He squeezes the trigger. The rifle coughs, a dry metallic snap. The sentry on the left jerks violently. His head snaps back. A spray of red mist paints the guard shack window behind him. He collapses instantly, his rifle clattering against the pavement. The second sentry spins. He raises his weapon, opening his mouth to scream a warning. The second shot strikes him in the chest plate. The impact hammers him backward. He stumbles. The third shot hits his throat. He drops to his knees, clutching his neck as blood spurts between his gloved fingers. He falls face down into a puddle. Silence returns to the gate. From the shadows, 12 figures materialize. They are dressed in black tactical gear, moving with fluid, predatory speed. They do not run, they glide. They reach the fence. Bolt cutters snap through the steel links. The metal falls away. The lead operator signals with a closed fist. 2 men peel off, sprinting low toward the generator block. 4 others stack up against the heavy steel door of the bunker entrance. One operator pulls a breaching charge from his vest. It is a flexible strip of plastic explosive. He slaps it against the door hinges and the locking mechanism. He steps back and raises a detonator. "Breaching," he whispers. He presses the button. The explosion is sharp and concussive. The steel door is ripped from its frame. It slams inward, skidding across the linoleum floor of the corridor inside. Smoke billows out. The British team surges forward. They step over the twisted metal, weapons raised, laser sights cutting through the dust. "Go! Go! Clear left!" They disappear into the throat of the bunker. The sound of automatic gunfire erupts from deep underground. 0555 hours. Interior corridor, Node Charlie. The underground hallway is a tunnel of noise and red strobing light. The fire alarm blares, a harsh, rhythmic pulse that vibrates in the chest. Smoke from the breached entrance drifts along the ceiling. At the far end of the corridor, 3 U.S. Marines are prone behind an overturned heavy oak desk. They have their assault rifles trained on the corner. Their faces are smeared with soot. A black shape blurs past the corner. "Contact!" the lead Marine yells. The Marines open fire. Muzzle flashes light up the dim hallway. Bullets chew into this concrete wall, sending clouds of gray dust and chips of plaster flying. The noise is deafening, a rapid, hammering staccato amplified by the confined space. A small metal cylinder skitters across the linoleum floor. It spins, clattering it against the baseboard, and stops 5 feet from the overturned desk. "Frag! Get down!" The flashbang detonates. A blinding white flash sears the air. The concussion slams into the Marines, overloading their senses. Their ears ring with a high-pitched whine. The British assault team surges around the corner. They move in a tight stack, weapons raised. They fire with clinical precision. Double taps strike the Marines before they can recover. The defenders slump behind the desk. Blood pools quickly on the polished floor. The British team leader steps over the bodies. He does not pause. He points to the double doors at the end of the hall. A sign reads, "Server Farm. Authorized personnel only." "Breach! Burn it!" he orders. A soldier kicks the door just below the handle. The wood splinters and the door swings open. Inside, the room is freezing. Rows of black server racks hum loudly, their blue status lights blinking in the darkness. This is the heart of the Atlantic Link. The soldiers fan out. They pull incendiary grenades from their vests. They pull the pins and slide the canisters between the delicate server blades. "Charges set! Moving!" They turn and sprint back into the corridor. Behind them, the grenades ignite. Thermite burns at 4,000 degrees. It does not explode, it melts. The steel racks glow cherry red. Plastic casings liquefy and drip like wax. Circuit boards sizzle and pop as the intense heat eats through the silicon. The blue lights on the wall flicker and die. The hum of the cooling fans winds down to silence. The connection is dead. 0610 hours. Exterior perimeter, Node Charlie. The sun struggles to pierce the heavy canopy of smoke hanging over the forest. Inside the bunker, the thermite charges finish their work. The heat signature is blinding on thermal optics. The British assault team bursts from the tunnel mouth, boots slamming into the mud. They do not look back. They sprint for the breach in the fence, moving with the desperate energy of men who have overstayed their welcome. The team leader throws a smoke canister behind them. It hisses, spewing a thick gray wall of concealment across the kill zone. "Move, move, Alpha extraction now!" he barks into his comms. A secondary charge detonates inside the tunnel entrance. The blast is dull and heavy, muffled by tons of earth. The concrete archway collapses. The hillside above it slumps downward, burying the entrance in a landslide of mud, rock, and pine trees. The bunker is sealed. The team reaches the tree line. Hidden under camouflage nets are 3 light strike vehicles, skeletal, fast attack buggies. The soldiers vault into the seats. Engines roar to life, tearing the silence apart. Drivers gun the throttles. The tires spin, chewing up the mossy ground, before gripping and launching the vehicles deep into the dense woods. Seconds later, the sound of heavy diesel engines echoes from the main road. A U.S. quick reaction force arrives. 3 armored vehicles drift around the muddy bend, their turrets swinging wildly. The heavy machine guns tear up the bushes where the British snipers had lain, but they are firing at ghosts. A U.S. sergeant kicks open the back door of the lead vehicle. He leads a squad of Marines toward the smoking ruin of the bunker. They stop at the landslide. There is no way in. The sergeant taps his headset. He looks at the smoking crater, then at the empty woods. "Command, this is QRF. Node, Charlie is gone. Repeat, Charlie is destroyed." The hostiles have vanished. High above the Atlantic, the data link terminates. On screens across the network, the live feeds from Europe freeze, pixelate, and turn black. The connection is severed. 0645 hours, debris field, node alpha site. The Atlantic winds shift, driving the heavy pall of smoke inland over the green fields. The sun is fully up now, revealing the scale of the devastation. The cliffside is a jagged scar of blackened earth and twisted rebar. The white radar domes are gone. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump of rotor blades beats against the chest. Two UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters bank sharply over the water, flaring their noses to bleed speed. They descend into the landing zone, a patch of flat grass amidst the rubble. The wheels touch down. The suspension compresses. Dust whips into a frenzy. Side doors slide open. U.S. Navy corpsmen sprint into the wind, crouching low under the spinning blades. They carry bright orange litters. "Clear! Move them now!" a crew chief screams over the engine whine. Marines emerge from the ruins carrying the wounded. Their uniforms are caked in gray dust and dried blood. They hoist the stretchers into the helicopter cabins. A burn victim on the first stretcher thrashes against his restraints. A corpsman injects morphine directly into his thigh. The soldier goes limp. 2 miles inland in the peat bog, a reconnaissance unit pushes through the mist. They reach the firing position of the British Patriot battery. It is empty. Deep ruts in the black mud show where the heavy launchers stood. The ground is littered with discarded camouflage netting and trash. A single spent launch canister lies on its side, half buried in the water, smoking faintly. The British force has melted away. On the cliffs, the Blackhawks lift off. They nose down and accelerate toward the hospital ship offshore, leaving the burning coast behind. A communications officer stands near the edge of the crater where the main antenna once stood. He holds a satellite phone to his ear. He stares at the horizon. "Command, this is Galway Actual," he says. His voice is flat. "Negative, no signal, the link is severed, we are dark. Repeat, total blackout." The ocean waves crash against the rocks below, drowning out the static. The morning sun glares off the choppy gray water. 3 miles offshore, the British extraction buggies sit abandoned on a rocky outcrop. 3 black Zodiac inflatables bounce violently across the waves, heading west at 40 knots. Their wakes cut white scars into the dark ocean. A shadow falls over them. The bow of the USS Arleigh Burke, a guided missile destroyer, slices through a swell. Thousands of tons of steel displace the water, creating a massive bow wave. The ship turns hard to starboard, blocking the exit to the open Atlantic. The 5-inch deck gun swivels rapidly. The barrel elevates. "Warning shot, fire!" The tactical officer barks on the bridge. The gun booms. A shell screams over the water and detonates 200 yards in front of the lead Zodiac. A geyser of water erupts, towering 50 feet in the air. The spray drenches the British operators in the boats. On the destroyer's deck, sailors man the .50 caliber heavy machine guns. They rack the charging handles. They aim down the iron sights, tracking the small, bouncing targets. The Zodiacs do not slow down. They turn directly toward the destroyer. "Maintain course, they are not stopping." The destroyer's phalanx CIWS close-in weapon system spins up. The electric whir is a menacing buzz. The 6 barrels rotate, searching for a threat. Suddenly, the ocean surface a mile behind the destroyer begins to boil. 7-10 hours, beneath the surface, Galway Bay. The water is murky and cold. 200 feet down, the massive black hull of a British Astute-class submarine hovers in the silence. It has been waiting on the seabed. Inside the attack center, the lighting is dim blue. The sonar operator watches the waterfall display. The acoustic signature of the U.S. destroyer thrashes the water above. "Solution locked, tubes 1 and 2 flooded," the weapons officer states. "Fire countermeasures, mask the withdrawal," the commander orders. Compressed air hisses. 2 heavy canisters shoot from the submarine's bow. They streak toward the surface. They do not contain warheads. They contain high-intensity acoustic decoys. 0712 hours surface. The water behind the U.S. destroyer explodes, not with fire but with sound. The decoys detonate, creating a wall of deafening high-frequency sonar pulses. On the Arleigh Burke, the radar screens wash out with white noise. The sonar operators rip their headsets off as the squeal pierces their ears. "Sonar is blinded, we have lost the contact." In the confusion, the British submarine breaches the surface like a surfacing whale. It rises between the Zodiacs and the destroyer. Steel plates shed water in cascading sheets. The hatch spins open. The British operators in the Zodiacs gun their engines. They slam alongside the submarine's hull. They throw their gear into the open hatch and dive inside. The boats are slashed and sink instantly. The hatch spins shut. The submarine vents ballast. It slips beneath the waves before the U.S. destroyer can bring its guns to bear. 8:30 hours, ruins of Node Charlie Irish coast. The fire is out. The bunker is a cooling tomb of wet ash and twisted metal. The smell is a heavy mix of melted plastic and ozone. A U.S. forensic team moves through the wreckage of the server room. Their flashlights cut through the gloom, illuminating the melted remains of the server racks. A senior warrant officer kneels by the main junction box. He uses a pair of pliers to pry open the fused casing. Inside, the fiber optic cables are severed, burned clean through. He stands up and walks out of the bunker to the ridgeline. Below him, the ocean is empty. The fog has returned, hiding the horizon. The U.S. destroyer is just a gray smudge in the distance, circling aimlessly. He pulls a satellite phone from his vest. He extends the antenna. He checks the signal strength. 0 bars. He looks at the other officer. He shakes his head. It's gone, he says. The Atlantic link is dead. We are blind. The wind howls over the cliffs, carrying the sound of the waves. There is no other sound. The ambush was perfect. The silence is absolute.